Carlton King is a former Scotland Yard Special Branch and MI6 officer and the author of Black Ops.
I was undercover for Special Branch in jihadi organisation.
If you'd like to help Carlton keep producing the Black Spy podcast and receive episodes and information that's only available to Carlton's special Patreon agents, then you can donate as little as £3, €4 or $5 a month by signing up with Patreon. See the Black Spy podcast notes or Google Patreon Black Spy podcast and pledge your monthly amount. You can even win the opportunity to be a guest on the show. Thanks for listening. And don't forget to subscribe for free.
So welcome to part 2 of the Black Spy podcast's last week's recordings. If you haven't listened to part 1, go back to last week and have a listen. But this is part 2. So enough further ado.
It's completely crazy. And I actually, I do wonder if we should invite an expert to come and talk this out with us, because one of the things that I do wonder is that we know, well, I mean, I sort of know because of all the chats that we've had, but you obviously 100% can qualify the sort of due diligence that a police officer would need to go through if if someone had died under their watch under whatever circumstances. And what we don't know is what kind of due diligence.
Should I give you a circumstance just to put it in context? Because I'm glad you said that. A colleague of mine, quite some years back now, was on protection in Special Branch with the Israeli ambassadors back into 1982. I'll tell you why it's 82, pure and simply, because subsequently I was looking at the organisation, the Abu Nidal Group. Okay, and the Abu Nidal Group was an extremely violent Palestinian organisation which believed in taking the battle to the Israelis. Okay. Wherever in the world. So he's looking after the Israeli ambassador who used to receive protection from the branch. And in those days, stupidly, I believe, they used to have a single person protection. So the officer who carried the job out, good guy at DC, he's carrying his pistol, and they're in the Dorchester. So they've had the meal in the Dorchester, and obviously he's sitting with him, having his meal with him, comes out of the Dorchester. It was a big big diplomatic do, so people knew who would be there. So he had made sure that there was DPG, Diplomatic Protection Group, which is armed uniform guys, at least have one or two armed uniform people on the outside of the building, and then many, obviously, unarmed uniform officers. So as they walk out of the Dorchester, Collins with his man, and the car's turned up, and the driver has pulled in, branch driver, pulled in right at the front, so as soon as they come out, the ambassador they can get into the car. Basically, Collins sees this guy with a Scorpion machine pistol. It's a small machine gun, rapid fire, 1,000 rounds a minute. So he sees this, and he hears, "Burp," and this guy that's the rounds going off. And the guy's also put it on him, and it doesn't fire. It jammed, lucky for Colin. And the guy then runs off. So the Israeli ambassador's down. So Colin looks at him. Right, okay, he's down. Call an ambulance, he's saying to the uniform, to the DPG fella. Secure him. The DPG fella is an armed uniform guy carrying with the other uniforms. Get the ambulance, surround him. I'm going to go after the perpetrator. So Colin runs after this guy. Okay, I won't give the branch officer's surname. I'll just say Colin. He runs after this guy, right? And as he's running after him, the guy's what we call it's a stoppage. So he's trying to free the stoppage. So he's racking the weapon, his machine gun, kicking it backwards. So the round comes out and then he can fire back, right, at Colin. So this guy then turns around after racking this weapon. Colin has drawn his in those days we had model 64 sidearm. It was like a revolver pistol, rubbish. And Colin fires a round at him, because this guy's turning to shoot at him, puts him down on the ground, right? Kicks the weapon away, stands by, calls his radio, more police to come and get this guy. So this guy's shot. Colin's put on trial. Right? Colin's put on trial. So they say, why have you shot this guy when he's running away? Colin said, well, actually, he's at the Old Bailey. He's turning around to shoot me. But where's the evidence to that? Colin said, he's a threat to me, and he's a threat to the rest of the people because he wants, public. This is Hyde Park, yeah, because we're running away down Park Lane. He's running back up Hyde Park. He's a threat to everybody around there. And there's always a lot of people around there, as you know, because you know London. All right, boom. He's running away. Why are you shooting somebody that's running away? These people never see an angry man, never had a shot fired at them in anger, don't know what's going on. You've got an Israeli ambassador who's down. Luckily, he survived, but was a paraplegic for the rest of his life. The guy who Colin shot survived as well and was imprisoned and probably came out about 7 years ago. Oh, a lot longer, probably about 10 years ago. But the bottom line is that he's done everything right and he's still put on trial. You see what I mean?
I completely see what you mean, but I also think that, one of the brilliant things that you've narrated, as you always do brilliantly, is the critical thinking of this. To me, when you look at multiple hospital murders of elderly people or babies who are, the most vulnerable people in society, or those who are disadvantaged in a way that they can't fight back, as it were, or those who've got their livers exposed. Like there is no critical thinking, is there? There's no. It is just murder, isn't it?
Correct. There's no reason for it. It's not as though, example, let's turn around and said, okay, these people were oppressing me and I want to get them back like a terrorist is. You got to understand the terrorist, don't you? He's generally, she, not just always she. Let's take the even more romanticized terrorists. Let's say the West Germans, Baader-Meinhof-Gruppe, or the Red Army faction, one morphed into the other, right? They have a romantic perspective that the German state is fascist and they want to fight against the fascist state. And therefore, they're going to attack the people who run the state, which in their opinion are the politicians, the police, judiciary, big business, right? So they've got that perspective. So at least you can see some, as you say, critical, you can see some point to it. The fact that they're just killing people willy-nilly, is and American forces, because I used to lay bombs down at the time I was working for American, used to lay bombs down in American barracks and stuff like that, right? So they are doing stuff that they perceive is for their cause, say. But what's the cause of the guy, as you say, quite rightly, Fergus, you cut straight through to it. As you say, what's the cause for the guy putting his initials on somebody's liver? What's his cause?
And also, I mean, I'm not being funny, but like, if you're going to open them up again, like, well, you want to know who's done it, well, just put his name on it.
Excuse me, I shouldn't be laughing. Sorry, it's not a funny subject.
Look, I know this is an awful thing to say, and I always said this was going to be an emotive conversation. I know this was an awful thing to say, but when you look at someone like poor Peter Connolly, Baby P, right?
Yep.
And you think, God, that poor child and the abuse that poor child went through. I mean, every bone in his body was broken. They snapped his fingers. They broke his teeth. They broke his back. They broke all the rest of it. And if it was so premeditated, why put the poor child through so much pain if you were going to kill him in the first place? Do you know what I mean? I know that's a horrible thing to say, but do you know what I mean?
I don't even think they were they? I think they're just bullied druggies or whatever, or drinkers, and I can't give him a card out. I can't give him a card out.
You can't because it's awful. But I mean the mum.
Isn't it worse? Is a nurse though doing it? Isn't it worse?
But what all I'm saying is like the mum, admitted it straight away, didn't she? And
well, she did blame it on the boyfriend, didn't she?
Yeah, and who knows what to say, but she pleaded guilty straight away. She but that poor child went through 17 months, and
Right.
as opposed, like, I'm not saying it would have been better to murder him at birth. Obviously, of course it wouldn't. It would have been lovely for him to have grown up, and I mean, he's like he'd be.
I felt so sorry for that
He'd be
fella,
like 15 now, wouldn't he?
I felt so sorry for the lad.
I know. I'm so sorry.
It's horrific. And as you say, what's the justification?
What's the justification? What's the justification? But I don't know. I mean, again, when we're trying to look at where the moral compass lies, you've obviously got parents harming their babies at home, out of sight of social services and out of sight of the NHS. Then you take them to the NHS, and then then there's that narrative, and then I don't know. It's like.
I mean, what do you think? I mean, what when I say to you, when I say to somebody like,
even bigger, you can go even bigger, because we wanted to expand this out. Like, you can build this story out to like Ghislaine Maxwell and the grooming.
Yeah.
Where's
I mean, even though when I look at Maxwell,
and I think, safe,
I mean, I'll when I look at Maxwell, I think to myself, I say, right, so is Maxwell on a power trip because she's been used to power all her life? Is that what I don't even want to guess. I don't even want to guess. Is it that she just thinks that? I'm not now talking about the girls who are 18, 19, 20, 21, whatever. Who I'm talking about the poorer girls that they got from the other side of the block, who were 13, 14, whatever they were, bringing them in because they know that a couple of quid will make them feel a lot better. It's the abuse of utilizing that. But when I look at that, I can't put that anywhere near killing babies or elderly people, for that matter of fact, without any reason, or even to be fair, well, I guess he'd say I had a reason for mutilating these people and cutting their breasts off, because I guess he's probably saying, well, I made a couple of quid for it. Maybe that's his reason, maybe. So there's a monetary reason. And who can tell me that I was wrong? Who can say I was wrong, that they didn't have some type of cancer that needed to come out? Who can tell me I'm wrong? But I ask this question, Firgas. I ask this question. If somebody's snipping off your breasts, surely there is not just you, the surgeon, doing it. There must be a line of people where you've gone through to say that it might be okay to snip your breasts off, that you may have cancer or whatever it might be. But obviously it's been proved in court that that's not the case. So what I'm saying is, do surgeons have the last, and I've had a surgeon on the programme, do they have the last laugh in terms of, well, I think she's got something, so I'm going to do that? Or I just don't. What I'm saying is, I don't know about the supervision. When we look at the police, it's, the supervision's rubbish. Why is the supervision not rubbish here as well? Because somewhere along the line, somebody's got to say, well, hang on, why is he doing these operations?
Well, it's funny. Do you know? I've got a couple of friends who've had C-section births, and after a few children down the line, and in the private sector, they've had a friendly midwife sort of whisper in their ear, "Hey, do you want your tubes tied at the same time as we deliver this last baby?" Because it's money. Because it's money.
Yeah, it's money.
I mean, they know they're going to. Because in the private sector, they know they're going to get that extra money. But in the NHS, it isn't. So it's
Tell me, how does this happen, Firgas? I ask you because I know you're the font of knowledge in many areas. So I ask you this: how can it happen? Let's take it the easy one. Let's not take the difficult ones of killing people. Let's take the easy ones. Let's take the ones. I don't know of operations to work on somebody's kidneys where there's only one doctor there. There isn't, is there? There's got to be loads of them. So are you telling me nobody's seen this guy write his initials on the kidney?
Exactly. I mean, is it? Do you know what I mean? And if he's doing it, is it a thing? I mean, like,
there you go.
I mean, like in my head, I'm thinking, God, this is like a TikTok phenomenon somewhere. isn't it? If there's
Absolutely. I asked the question because, when I watch it from the outside, I'm not an expert. I have had a surgeon on, but I'm not an expert. And when we spoke, he talked about quite a few things. And if you want to look at the back episode, you can see it. But the point is that to me, there's always several people there. Is somebody not seeing, what's that last bit he's doing? What's that last little sign he's doing there? Is somebody not, or do they just say, oh, we're not saying anything?
Yeah, I know, and it's interesting, isn't it? So there's this there's this company called Nourish Care. They're like real disruptors in the industry. The main guy, the guy that invented it's called Nuno Almeida.
Right.
And he was like a huge big deal in robotics, and he's invented this thing which he's trying to get the government to make mandatory for care homes at very least. Which so it's essentially like how you've got your Fitbit or your health tracker or whatever, right? It's like that for people in care homes, but their friends and family can see what's going on.
All right. Yeah.
So like, you can, if grandma's in a care home, you can see when she had a cup of tea, you can see if she went for a walk today, you can see when she had her pills, you can see all of that, but also you can see what her heart rate is, you can see how many breaths per minute she's had, it's all of that information, and it's making the patient care accessible to the people, to the people who care, I suppose, which is a really interesting sort of
positive
concept. Yeah, it's a hugely positive thing. But if I mean, at the moment they're brands in sort of care homes and sort of additional support spaces. So care providers for for people with additional needs, I suppose.
Yeah.
If you could monitor your loved one in an NHS situation the entire time through their operation via the medium of technology, would that put a stop to
it would
their initials on
it
their
would
list?
But I'm going to be cynical. I'm going to be very, very cynical to you, right? And maybe I'm wrong, so I'll put my hands up straight away beforehand. I suggest the reason why that's even considered in care homes is because they're amongst the most poorly paid individuals in the workplace. And again, it's the perception of them being working class people who need to be monitored. Because when they're not working class people, I'll tell you now, the BMA would say, I'm not having you look at what I'm doing as a doctor. And that would be the end of it. Think about it in Parliament. Work your way through it. Think on it. In Parliament, you've basically got three types of people. One are doctors, ex-doctors. One are generally some sort of politico, who's maybe been a journalist, whatever, gone through college, uni, but ended up there as a politico type individual. And then the other one that you get quite a bit of is ex-military type people, right? Now, those type of people are never questioned. And I believe the reason why. So, let's take the two police officers, actually, who we're talking about in the Met, who've caused the Met all this damage. Both of them were in the army before. But the army is not being spoken about. Because if I was looking at this from the outside in, I'd say maybe those two guys are damaged from having been in the army. That's what I would be saying.
Right, but okay, so to
but
your
no,
point,
they don't, because in Parliament, none of the top honchos want that looking at, because that's their body that they look to. They can control it. Same with docs. They can control what's going on with doc. The medical profession hardly gets hammered because they can they can sort it out. Their own people are in there. That's what I think. Now, I may be wrong.
Well, all I'd say, Carlton, to your point, and God, this is hellishly depressing, but to your point about the low pay, right, and to my point about the lack of digital monitoring and process monitoring, do you mean like is there an element, is there a mindset where it's easier to just bump someone off with plausible deniability?
Absolutely. I have zero doubt, and I mean it. I'll say it, zero doubt. who is looking for work? Frankly, an elderly person dies, 80, 90. Who's looking for work? Who's looking to say that's a problem? Who's got the vested interest to say it's a problem? Right. So I think it's very easy. And also when we go to the other, let's push it through the other avenue. You know that one of the things that people talk about, and again, I think that people in care homes do a very good job. A lot of them, vast majority, in fact. But you'll find how people hear about people stealing from care homes, from elderly who have got some sort of Alzheimer's or dementia. Again, very easy to do, isn't it?
Of course, yeah. I mean, of course, gosh, yeah, it's hugely depressing, and like when you sort of build that out, and when you think about Nurse Letby, who knows how many hours shift she'd been on, like, obviously she committed the same crime, many times over, but was it just a, means to an end? Was it
the case is quite interesting because I've looked at it a little bit, and people are saying that she seemed to be euphoric when most people were down because the children had died. She seemed to be upbeat, and of course you do know that the diaries they've found about saying I am horrible, I am evil, I am this. You've seen all that, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's been put out in the court, so that's we're not subjudicing now. We're saying what's been put in the court. We're just reporting what's been put in the court. That it is said that it was her writing. It was said she had written it, and the supposition is allegedly that it relates to the fact that she's been killing the babies. I mean, but we've got all these others, haven't we? That I just read out. All these others.
Yeah,
I mean,
and you only
and
got
that's
halfway
just
through
some of
the
them.
list, didn't you? You only got
halfway through it. Absolutely. There's loads of them. And so the last bit of the conversation, because we are running on as per normal, which is fair enough. Last bit of the conversation, I have to ask you, why do the press not run with these stories?
Well, yeah. Now, and that is a very interesting. That is a very, very interesting point. And to be honest, any, I would suggest that, goodness, any killer within the NHS could have been in their heyday through the pandemic when the media was encouraging everyone to clap for and paint rainbows and all the rest of it every week. It's yes that the media has positioned the NHS as heroes, but I'll tell you one thing, okay? My youngest son was born on the 11th of December 2019, right? Now, that day, apart from the fact that it was my son's birthday, it was the day before the last election.
Yeah.
Right. I discharged myself from hospital and drove myself home with my newborn baby because at the time, the vote hung on the fact that the Conservatives were going to privatise the NHS.
Yeah.
Now, doesn't that seem like such a long way away that now the NHS are our heroes? My child turns 4 in December, right? But I said to the hospital staff, I said, I need to leave now. I need to get out of here. I need to go home. I'm filling out the paperwork for myself. I'm going to discharge myself because I want to vote, because I want to save the NHS, right? Because the Tories were going to, because that was the agenda, wasn't it? And then the pandemic changed everything, and now the NHS is heroic. But I'm not saying that it wasn't before. All I'm saying is, isn't it interesting that the media narrative has shifted so much that if the pandemic hadn't have happened, we probably wouldn't have an NHS.
See, right? I think that the media, and I always say, don't know, we talk about geopolitics more than anything else, because that's what makes things happen. I didn't, and oftentimes it's a matter of not realising. I didn't realise how privatised the NHS already is until I had, as I say, the surgeon / doctor on the show. And what he explained to me was that every surgery is private. So all of the surgeries which we all go to see our GP, they're all private. I didn't realise it. I understood that somehow, they were connected, but I didn't realise that they were actually private. So basically what happens is they decide everything what goes down, and they work for the surgery, and they are paid in relation to their work, what they do. So this leads us to another angle, which you don't think about. Two things. One is a big American company right now, as we speak, medical company, one in particular, but others, are buying up doctors' surgeries, particularly in the southeast, London, around that area. They're buying them up. And what they've decided to do, this is a fact, what they've decided to do is, because generally in a doctor's surgery, you'll have doctors, then you'll have, now they've put in different types of practitioners who might do skeletal work, musculoskeletal work. They've got some element of diagnosis, and then they'll have their own people who work the front desks. And then behind that, they've got individuals who, when a doctor writes about you on the computer, and you need to send a letter off to the hospital, which is NHS, that person sends that off, and that then comes back through, etc., etc. What this American company is doing is they realise that these, what they're calling non-medical staff, are actually superfluous. So what they've done is, and it's up in Birmingham where they've cited it, they've got a massive medical letter writing, registration, administrative section, whatever you want to call it, where basically all of these doctors from the surgeries which they've got in the southeast, they all send up their information, and the letters are written out then by non-medical people with non-medical connections, because generally in the surgeries they learn medical stuff as they go along, and they're pretty good at what they're doing. If they've got a problem, they ask the doc, what's the problem? It's that, bang, I'll type that up. And the letters go out to the hospitals and then come back in, letters come back in then to the surgery, then they're sent to the individuals. In this big area where they have these people now, 24 hours a day, they're just writing out what surgeries are saying. Many of them have zero medical assistance. They have dictionaries that they just look to and say, that's how that word's spelled. Boom, 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 boom. Fire it off. Yeah. And the backlog is such that some people are going to the doctors, and it then takes literally 4 months before the write-up's done to go to a hospital. And then when it comes back from the hospital to that central area, it then goes to the doctors again, and then they have to work out. So it's been taking some people 6 months. Now, you imagine you've got cancer and you should be getting a hospital appointment, and it's taking you 6 months to get that paperwork. It's incredible. This is going on right now as we speak under the present government.
Exactly. And like I say, I mean, that's why I think the sort of thing that companies like Nourish, the sort of work that they're doing is amazing, because I do think that that technology can support the NHS in a much better way, and there's that old joke, isn't there, about sort of the doctor's shorthand where it's just a load of scribble, and you're sat any time that you happen to end up in a hospital bed and you just look at the notes at the end of the bed, and it's a clipboard and it's notes, it's a load of scribble and stuff like that, and I mean, maybe sort of circling back to the why is it so easy to murder under plain sight? Well, probably because the reportage is
there's no oversight. That's the point. There's zero oversight, and that's where the problem lies. And you mentioned it actually, because you said about people during the pandemic. The point you missed out during the pandemic is we were all getting stuff pumped into our arms, right? What a fantastic opportunity for somebody who just wanted to kill people.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And
I don't know what they put in my arm.
Like Dr. Rachel said, and also like Dr. Rachel said, nobody looked at the side effects of the vaccine anyway.
There you go. So I don't know what they put in my arm. You don't know what they put in your arm. They say it's Pfizer. They say it's Moderna. What is it? This is the point.
The Moderna vaccine people, they won't even declare the ingredients of their vaccine.
Correct. Because they say
I mean,
you see the problem here is, and we're going to have to run, but the problem here is, Fergus, again, I don't think people want to challenge the NHS when they're murdering people, because I don't think they want to make people think. Police are easy. Let's sort them out. Easy. Let's do them. Let's now jump onto the fire brigade. Easy. Not a problem. Let's sort them out. We'll even have a crack at ambulance service. Easy. Do we really want to crack at doctors?
No, I completely agree. And do you know what? And I've said this to you before, Carlton. I think a lot of this is it's learned culture. I don't know why this is. I don't know why. Maybe this is a conversation we can have another time. But from an early age, I feel like we are conditioned to fear the police. Whereas, and to be honest, I'll put my hands up. Until I met you, I probably would have done as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
But now I know that now now I know the lingo.
Absolutely.
100%. But also, I tell my children, but back in the day, I mean, it was that whole thing of you want to know the time, ask a policeman,
Yeah. I'm not going to argue that there aren't bad police. I'm not going to argue that.
I say to my children, I say to my kids, if you lose your phone, call the police. If you get lost, if something happens at the park, if you're call the police. Like, the police are your friends.
Do you know something, Fergus? Even the people who hate police, when something goes wrong, call them, right? Because this is the problem.
Well, yeah, even baby. I mean, again, okay, don't take this out of context, but even baby P's parents reported themselves to the police.
So you see, even people who think, "Oh, I hate the old Bill, I hate this," as soon as something goes wrong and somebody comes up to stab them or whatever it might be, they're calling the old Bill to deal with it. Now, I leave you on this one. An officer who may or may not have gone over the top. I don't know the case, but he's doing time in prison. The footballer Julian Atkinson, a great footballer, unfortunately suffered from mental health problems. Unfortunately, the circumstance was that he went into his house and had blood all over him, said that he'd killed his brother and sister, and was strangling his dad to death. Right? Now, the family, dad, called the police on him. When the police turned up, 2 officers, man and woman, they then tried to subdue him, strong fella, and apparently one of them kicked him, and the woman kicked him when he was down. But let me put it this way, and let me get this in context. I've done Kung Fu most of my life, okay? I was very, very good at it. I used to train US Army Rangers. They're like special forces, okay? Now, I'll tell you, trying to put a man's arm up his back, especially a fit man, right, is one of the most difficult things in the world. So for the average person who comes into the police, does 5 hours of something once every blue moon, yeah? So in his training in the police, they do a couple of, they do an hour here and an hour there, an hour there. That does not train them to do anything. They put cuffs on people, and as soon as they bend the fella's arm round his back, when you're in training, the person says, man or woman, officer, oh, that's it. Oh, that's it. Bang, that's it. Fair enough. Boom, cuffs are on. That's their training. That's how they're doing the training, because they're not actually really going for it, because frankly, really going for it, you'll do somebody some damage. But that's how they do it. So when they actually get into what is effectively a fight, you against them, yeah, they're no good. And if you've got a big 6-foot guy, or even a 5-foot guy who's powerful and capable, or even a woman powerful and capable, you are struggling. It's that simple. So you're in the end fighting for what you think. Now, you've got your equipment, and in Britain that'll be an asp, so that's basically a piece of metal a baton, which I think is extremely dangerous, by the way. You've got pepper spray, which, well, it's not proper pepper spray, that's the problem. It's more CS spray. So its effects are not great, and it can just affect you as much as it can the person you spray it at. And then you've got a taser, which I think is much better, but some don't have tasers, only certain officers have tasers, right? And generally nobody's going to fire.
It's like
out.
you might as well just lob a load of peanuts at them and
Correct.
hope they've
You just
got
fight.
allergy.
Absolutely right. You're just fighting, right? But the problem is, we watch this Scott and Bailey type stuff or whatever it is, and you see two women grab a fellow and just put his arm up his back, and he's a big 6-foot bloke, and I've got you now, mate. No. The reality is, as there was on some program just the other day, in fact, and people complaining, somebody comes at the officer, bang, fella. He don't care whether you're a man or a woman. He's hitting you as hard as he can and puts you down on the floor, right? And then he chooses what he does to you when you're down on the floor, right? That's the reality of it. That's how it really works, because you're going against angry men and women. Who's calling the police for good people? You're not. You're calling it because it's a problem. Right? So now you're going against angry men and women who, by the way, have probably trained themselves up to be able to do the job that they're doing in terms of stealing or taking somebody's money or whatever it might be, or clubbing somebody over the head or doing an armed robbery, whatever it might be. He's probably trained himself up and is capable. And you're not capable. Right? And you get a good hiding. You should look at the amount of assault on police. You get a good hiding. So that's the reality of it. But nobody wants to see the reality.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Because anger... Well, I mean, I don't know. This might be another conversation with Dr. Rachel, but I mean, anger is a powerful emotion, but it can play out physically, or it can play out sort of mentally.
Mm-hmm. You don't feel the pain. You don't feel the pain.
Yeah, and
the guy you're fighting because he's angry isn't feeling the pain.
It's a really complex emotion. Like when you look at other things that you might have been sort of called to task for, like sort of religious crimes or wars or terrorism or whatever. Anger's just it's like this sort of volatile emotion, isn't it? That actually, like, in a way, once it's done, it's done.
You've hit the nut on the head. You've hit the nut superb on the head, and we're gonna have to stop on it, but we will come back to this, because I'll tell you now, it is lunacy to turn around and say that a fella who straps a bomb on himself and blows himself up is a coward.
Yeah, right? Of course. And
let's be realistic. People turn around and say, "Oh, he's a coward." No, figure what he's doing. He's putting a strap on himself, and he's going to blow his body to bits, right, in order to kill you.
But also, it completely wasn't spur of the moment, was it? It was
no, exactly not. Exactly that. He's not spur of the moment. Now there are some where you've got a second eye, somebody lets the bomb on, but the bottom line is you've put that on you. That suicide bomb. And there was a time, actually, when I wanted to go to Israel to speak to some failed suicide bombers. I know that sounds crazy, but there are some, and the Israelis have them locked away. And I wanted to get to speak to them when I was running the National Public Order Intelligence Unit's strategic analysis unit. I wanted to get to see, why are you willing to be, or did you think you were willing to be a suicide bomber? So there are some who didn't go ahead with it, and they've got them locked up in Israel or whatever. Right, so I wanted to go over, and originally they said I could, and then they disallowed it anyway. But the bottom line is that's what I wanted to do, to get their feelings, to understand them. So why would you put yourself forward to blow yourself to smithereens? One thing you're not is a coward. That's just, politicians can say that, oh, you're not a coward, right? That's what you're not. You may be whatever else, mentally deficient, whatever. You could be a whole load of things, right? But the bottom line is that that's what you're going to do, right? And oftentimes is a religious belief behind that perspective.
Yeah, okay. And
it's so powerful.
Weirdly, because I know we need to round this up, but weirdly, this segues back to Mayuki Ishikawa.
Yes.
Right, weirdly circles back to that, because what she was saying essentially was that, she was essentially trying to say to poor Japanese parents that they didn't have a life.
Yes.
If they were going to be parents. So she would just take that burden from them.
Yes.
they would pay her to take that burden from them.
Yeah.
But then just by default, she was murdering the children.
We don't need to go there, do we? We can go to the Nuns of Ireland, can't we?
We don't need to go there.
The Nuns of Ireland were doing the same, weren't they?
Yeah, but all I'm saying is like this is a big question. And okay, so I'm going to round this up by saying to your listeners, would you like to chat with us in person and tell us your NHS horror stories or good stories?
Or ask any questions. I'm open to answer any question people ask.
Do you want to see Carlton do his martial arts whilst wearing a Hugo Boss suit?
An old timer. No, an old timer.
Come on, you said it now. You can do it.
That's true. But I was a young man, but an old timer. But no, you're absolutely right. Hopefully, we just want the feedback. And whether you would like that, because we're happy. You can ask any questions, and obviously, as long as I can answer them, I will answer them. If it's super secret, obviously, I won't be able to. But otherwise, I'm happy to answer any questions. So and I know you are too, because a lot of people don't understand how the press works. It's to me what you said, and I never knew of it before. And I'll leave my end on this and allow you to finish your end. What you said to me makes absolute sense, and I'll remember this for the rest of my life. Dog bites man, nothing. Man bites dog, story. And that summed it up to me. Super.
Yeah. Well, I love that. But I mean, yes. I love that, and I'm really happy to expand on that on a later date. But also I would just like to round this up to say that I'm so privileged that I can ask Carlton all of these questions, and I hope that a lot of the questions that the listeners want, a lot of the things that listeners want to know, are answered in these podcasts. But we are very much open to suggestions, and B, if you'd like to see us or meet us in public, or if you'd like us to come and do a talk, or if you'd like to in any way interact with us in real life, in real life, goodness, who we've all forgotten about in real life. If let's get back into in real life. If you want to, we can do that.
Absolutely. And there, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say that's it for me today. Hopefully you'll listen again next week. You, Fergus?
I'm going to say good night. Sorry if the episode content was a little depressing or disturbing. And I wish everyone happy Easter weekend, good luck, good health, and and all of those good vibes.
Thank you very much. See you later.
If you'd like to help Carlton keep producing the Black Spy podcast and receive episodes and information that's only available to Carlton's special Patreon agents, then you can donate as little as £3, €4 or $5 a month by signing up with Patreon. See the Black Spy podcast notes or Google Patreon Black Spy podcast and pledge your monthly amount. You can even win the opportunity to be a guest on the show. Thanks for listening. And don't forget to subscribe for free.
Here is a working class spy telling his stories, the secrets, the lives of spies. Feel free to message Carlton King on all socials and give this show 5 stars on Apple iTunes and subscribe so you never miss a single episode. For your ears only.
I was a member of Her Majesty's Secret Intelligence Service.